The ancient Romans called the rolling countryside outside of Rome Campania. When they came to this region of France, the scenery recalled their native land, and they named it for home. Today, the word champagne evokes a pop and a sizzle. The bubbly elixir flows in every town in this festive region of France. Even the architecture reflects an ebullient and effervescent spirit. Just a little taste of the Champagne region, and it'll go right to your head. Cheers.
Cheers.
A trip to Champagne is a taste sensation. You can design an itinerary around tasting different champagnes in different settings. Between glasses, you can drink in the verdant countryside, the tiny stone villages, medieval cities, and mighty fortresses. We begin in Reims, or as the French say, Reims. Then we travel south to the medieval town of Troyes and take in the Champagne route near Epernay. And finally, the city of Charleville and the fortress at Sedan. When you walk in the town of Reims, you're walking on Champagne. Hundreds of miles of tunnels and caves, stocked with millions of bottles of bubbly wine, lie beneath. Reims is poised to have the most celebratory earthquake ever. A lively town of some 200,000 residents, Reims is only about an hour's drive from Paris, and the city is friendlier and more reasonably priced than its famous neighbor. Once an important Roman city, Reims today has few historic monuments remaining. Aside from parts of the historic center, Reims was devastated by World War I. Today, modern shops line Reims' wide streets, and there are plenty of cozy, colorful bistros like the popular Café du Palais to warm up a rainy Champagne afternoon. My dear friend and Champagne fan Anna has joined me for a tour of this bubbly region. Reims is the capital of Champagne, and the king of wines makes its presence felt all around town. The secret to great Champagne actually began 70 million years ago, when an ancient sea left rich chalk deposits in this region. At Taittinger, an historic 18th century Champagne house in Reims, the chalky geology manifests itself in huge white underground cellars. These chalk caverns, known as crayères, were excavated by Romans some 2,000 years ago for building projects. Champagne gets its bubbles from a second fermentation that's created by adding yeast and sugar to the wine. Every day, for several weeks, the bottles receive a brisk quarter turn. This is called riddling, and it moves the yeast sediment toward the neck of the bottle. The yeast is then disgorged from the bottles, a process you can witness upstairs at Taittinger. The bottle tops are dipped in an icy liquid brine. The yeast freezes instantly, and it's popped out. A dosage of wine and sugar is added to sweeten the champagne and to fill up the bottle. Then the bottle is recorked and left to age. Of course, the highlight of any Taittinger tour is the tasting room.
In Champagne, you have different styles, and Taittinger is one style.
Is there Chardonnay in here?
Yes, Taittinger uses a lot of Chardonnay.
Any Pinot Noir at all?
Yes, we put some Pinot Noir and sometimes some Pinot Meunier, but as we put a lot of Chardonnay, it gives the lightness and the elegance.
Do you remember the first time you tasted champagne?
I don't remember it because it was when I was born. The tradition in Champagne is to put some champagne on the little baby tongue.
Oh, what a great tradition. In the 18th century, Champagne swept Europe's royal courts. It became known as the King of Wines and the Wine of Kings. And the kings of France were no strangers to the city of Reims. Following tradition, French kings came here to be crowned in the glorious Cathedral of Notre Dame. The very first French king, Clovis, was crowned in Reims in 449. Begun in 1210, at a time when Gothic cathedrals sprang up all over France, Notre Dame embodies the Gothic desire to reach to the sky and soar to heaven. There's optimism and a sense of hope and redemption that characterize these magnificent cathedrals. Champagne even makes its way into the cathedral. Colorful stained glass details the champagne making process. The cathedral and its windows suffered severe damage during World War I bombardment. Some windows were restored, others commissioned anew. In 1974, artist Marc Chagall created the beautiful azure windows in the chapel in the apse. The right-hand window depicts great moments in the history of Reims. After their coronations, newly crowned kings gathered here for a party in the grand hall of the Palace de Taux, right next to the church. Adorning the walls, 15th century tapestries tell the story of King Clovis. His wife Clotilde pressed him to convert to Christianity, but he adamantly refused. One day, in a deadly battle, the king prayed to the God of Clotilde to assist him. He won the fight and converted instantly. Royal presents, reliquaries, and chalices sparkle in the palace's treasury. In the salle of Charles X, you can see the royal cloak worn by Charles himself for his 1825 coronation. Anna is after a set of royal chalices for her fine champagne. Our quest in the shops of Reims is to find the ideal champagne flute.
This one is more contemporary. It's Baccarat. It's made by Baccarat for us also.
This is very beautiful. What is this design?
Oh, this one is a very old champagne glass. It's created by Marc Lalique when he lived close to Reims. And he designed that because he liked very much the cathedral and the angel of the cathedral you could see here.
It is an angel's face.
Yes, it is. Look at that. This is so beautiful.
And this one also.
When the champagne and the Gothic spires start to dance in your head, there's no better place to retire than the lovely Hotel La Siette Champenoise. Located about a mile outside of town and surrounded by greenery, this 19th century mansion is a quiet haven. Chef Arnaud Lallemont's cuisine draws guests from all over the region. A 5-course meal in the elegant restaurant is a memorable event. Upstairs, the pastel-hued rooms invite sleep, and after a long, hard day in Champagne, I'll be out like a light. In the style of troubadours, we're headed south to the medieval town of Troyes. From Troyes, we'll tour the countryside of the Haute-Marne, stopping at a chateau famous for its lovers. Troyes is a dream of a town, straight from the pages of a storybook. Once a textile trading center, Troyes hosted huge champagne fairs in the 12th and 13th centuries. Textiles, as well as other goods, were traded. Troubadours sang in the streets. Bear trainers, dancing girls, and puppeteers vied for the crowd's attention. For merchants and buyers, the Counts of Champagne guaranteed safe passage to and from the fairs. It follows that a fanciful town like Troyes would harbor a world-famous chocolatier in its pretty streets. Pascal Café is not a mere confectioner. He's an artisan known all over France for his chocolates. Now, is it possible to send the truffles to the United States?
Yes, bien sûr.
Oh, magnifique. In 1976, two local art collectors donated their outstanding collection of modern art to the town of Troyes. The works of the artists, known as the fauves, or wild beasts, leap from the walls with their bold colors and themes. Fauve was a derogatory phrase coined by a reviewer in 1905 in reaction to the bright colors and skewed landscapes in the paintings. The Fauvists abandoned the traditional use of perspective, using color to convey a sense of space and depth. The artist Derain is particularly well represented. Just outside of Troyes, the land quickly turns to countryside. The area is known as the Haute-Marne, and it's quintessential French countryside, the place you dream of spending a summer or two. Tucked in this luxurious countryside is a chateau where the philosopher and writer Voltaire lived in the mid-1700s with his lover, Émilie de Châtelet. The couple asked Emily's husband to let them restore the chateau and go to live there together. Emily's marriage was one of convenience, and her husband thought having Voltaire pay for the restoration was also pretty convenient. They became the hottest scandal in Paris, but the lovers ignored the controversy and spent much of their time reading, writing, and discussing philosophy. Voltaire was the voice of the Age of Reason, an explosion of free thought in 18th century Europe. He wrote many plays here, and using guests as actors, he staged them in the chateau's little theater. Emily died in childbirth 15 years after the start of their affair. Bereft, Voltaire claimed he had lost the other half of his soul. Set out in almost any direction in Champagne and you'll discover villages tucked in and around a sea of grapes. Touring this countryside by car is a wonderful way to taste the product, meet the small growers, and tour famous houses. Now, most are open to the public, but some only by appointment. Our Champagne tour takes us to the House of Boulanger, set in the hills of the historic region around Aix. Later, we visit a small producer in the town of Mesny-sur-Orge. The Champagne climate informs the region's wine. The growers walk a tightrope between cold winters, late spring frosts, and not enough sun in the summer. But the difficulties are also the rewards. The grapes are high in sugar and acid, precisely the qualities needed for sparkling wine. The chalky soil is ideal for growing Champagne grapes. Champagne was once a flat wine. It was here in Haute-Vienne that the story of sparkling Champagne began. In the early 18th century, Benedictine abbeys owned vineyards and made wine. The northern climate and the type of grapes sometimes accidentally caused the wine to sparkle. The monks, among them the now famous Dom Pérignon, began to experiment to find ways to get rid of that sparkle. They never succeeded in quelling the bubbles. But when sparkling Champagne became popular, they began deliberately creating bubbles through a second fermentation. At Champagne Boulanger, you can witness a traditional process that those friars would still recognize. Historically, all Champagne was fermented in oak barrels. Today, Boulanger is one of only 2 houses to continue this process, which may give the Champagne more complexity and aroma before it's bottled. And you say that aging in oak barrels in Champagne now is very unusual.
Oh yes, it's very exclusive. We consider it as a paradise for great wines because it does allow the wine to breathe and develop its character, its bouquet and its aromas.
Bollinger even employs a cooper to repair the precious old oak barrels in order to retain their mellowed flavor. When you taste champagne, what tells you it's a great champagne?
First, the delicate bubbles, then the color, then of course the nose. Such a nose is fantastic, and it's an open door to pleasure.
Oh yeah. Only 3 grape varieties are allowed in the production of champagne: the white Chardonnay grape and the red grapes, Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier.
Pinot Noir will give the structure, the body, the strength. Chardonnay will give elegance and finesse, and then Pinot Meunier will give fruitiness.
Oh, that's great. Tiny bubbles.
You can say Bollinger in French, Bollinger in English, Bollinger auf Deutsch, and of course Bolli for every lover.
A grower in Champagne knows the different parcels of land by the taste of its champagne. A neighbor's vintage might be described as having a scent of grapefruit, an aroma of walnuts, or as chocolatey, buttery, long, or on the bad side, musty, flabby, or green. These varied flavors come from the soil, the air, the types of grapes, and the aging process. Stopping in at a small grower is one of the great pleasures of a champagne tour.
Look for signs that say dégustation.
Or tasting. Cheers.
Cheers, Rudy.
Lannoy, father and son, run this lovely estate in Mesny-sur-Oger. Son-in-law Benoit Margout shared a glass with us and told us about the estate.
Now we open a bottle of Lannoy Favre and Sons, Lannoy Père et Fils Champagne. It's a vintage 1997, a pure Chardonnay coming from the White Coast. The White Coast is actually this Chardonnay region behind me. Wonderful.
And it's named the White Coast because of the Chardonnay grape.
Exactly, which is grown here in this region. It grows at its best, south of Épernay. So people can come, visit us, share a glass with us, and buy some champagne.
Let's try some.
Okay.
Cheers.
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 Cheers, Anna.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You can enjoy it from breakfast to dinner. It's wonderful.
And do you?
Yes, I do. Sometimes I love.
In addition to making champagne, the family preserves the tradition in a fascinating underground museum devoted to the wine-making utensils of the past. North of Reims, the countryside turns wooded. The magical river Meuse winds through mysterious forests and charming towns. Our tour of the Ardennes region centers on the town of Charleville and the nearby fortress of Sedan. Enchanted forests, castle fortresses, and puppet shows. The lovely Ardennes brings mystery and magic to the Champagne region. Set along the banks of the River Meuse, Charleville is known as the Golden City for all its gold stone buildings. The colorful Place du Col brings to mind the Place de Vosges in Paris, and small wonder. The 16th century architect who designed Place du Col was the brother of the Place de Vosges architect. Charleville's unusual clock of the marionette enacts a short drama on the hour.
Voici en 12 tableaux la très plaisante et merveilleuse histoire des 4 fils aînés.
A huge festival of marionettes takes place in Charleville every 3 years, and it draws puppeteers from all corners of the globe. For 10 magical days, more than 250 companies perform for hundreds of thousands of spectators, and the entire town becomes a vast theater. If you don't catch the festival, you can inquire about performances at the Institute of the Marionette, where students regularly put on strange, fascinating, and original shows.
I don't believe it! You are a fish?
これは物語を和の侍。
Not far outside of Charleville, the medieval fortress of Sedan commands an entire hill. One of the largest fortresses in Europe, Sedan was begun in 1424, and work continued through the 17th century. The fortress saw much strife, especially with Prussia. Here on September 1st, 1870, Napoleon III, nephew of the more famous Napoleon, found himself and his army surrounded by Prussian troops. The battle signaled the rise of German military might and the end of Napoleon's nepotistic career as Emperor of France. Upstairs in the vast tower, note the wonderfully preserved 15th century black walnut roof, a web of timber. Standing on the tower ramparts, you can imagine centuries of princes scanning the vista, their town and forests stretched out below. Back in the town of Reims, we celebrate our Champagne experience with one last gourmet meal and 3 courses of bubbly. We tend to think of Champagne as a celebratory drink, but true connoisseurs match their Champagne with each dish. Here in the renowned Reims restaurant, Le Créer, the chef and the wine steward plan a different Champagne with each delicious course. Our first Champagne is a Blanc de Blanc, 100% Chardonnay, light and perfect for seafood.
Merci.
Lobster and rosemary.
Thank you.
Our next Champagne is 60% Chardonnay and 40% Pinot Noir with a fuller body that stands up to meat dishes. Well, I'm really looking forward to tasting this Pomeroy with the Pinot Noir.
L'émincé de veau de lait.
Ah, the veal. You know, this could be a very expensive habit, pairing Champagne with every course we eat in the rest of our lives. Finally, 100% Pinot Meunier, a fruity rosé Champagne for dessert. Figs with anise ice cream and spun sugar. To you.
Thank you, Rudy.
Thank you, Anna. I'm never leaving. That's it. I'm never leaving. Champagne is a heady mixture of sparkling wines, Gothic lace, culinary gold, and bucolic bliss. The vineyards roll gently, dreamily around the towns that tend them. And everywhere there's celebration in the air. Economist John Maynard Keynes once remarked that his major regret in life was not having consumed enough champagne. We certainly don't want to make that mistake. From the heart of Champagne, cheers and au revoir. Cheers.